When a successful black entrepreneur boards her own private jet, she's unexpectedly met with the blatant prejudice and scrutiny of the pilot. But when things go too far, she speaks up, unleashing the authority and strength of a true leader. In that moment, the pilot realizes he's messed with the wrong woman. Buckle up, because this is a journey you'll never forget. The morning air around the private jet terminal was crisp and still, heavy with the promise of another day catering to the world's wealthiest travelers. Inside, the terminal exuded understated luxury. Polished marble floors reflected the soft glow of pendant lights hanging from a vaulted ceiling. The faint scent of freshly brewed coffee mingled with the distant hum of engines from the tarmac outside. Maya Carter stepped into the terminal, her presence commanding attention without a single word. She was impeccably dressed in a tailored white blazer paired with high-waisted black trousers, exuding an air of quiet sophistication. Her natural curls framed her face, her almond-shaped eyes sharp and observant. A leather carry-on slung over one shoulder and a sleek tablet in hand were the only accessories she carried, functional, elegant, and purposeful. Maya had learned long ago that subtlety was its own form of power. This day was a pivotal moment in her career. She had spent years building Carter Energy Solutions, a leading innovator in renewable technology. From an underfunded startup to an internationally recognized force in ion energy, the journey had been marked by relentless determination. Now, she was on the brink of a major deal, a partnership with European investors that could catapult her company into new markets. Zurich was more than a destination, it was a gateway to the next stage of her success. The terminal was a study in quiet opulence, designed to make the wealthy feel at home. Executives in sharp suits lounged in leather chairs, sipping artisanal coffee while glancing at their phones. Socialites, effortlessly glamorous, wheeled designer luggage across the marble floors. No one rushed. Time here felt like it moved at the pace of privilege. Maya approached the check-in desk where a young woman, Clara, greeted her with a polished smile. Clara's uniform was immaculate, her demeanor pleasant but professional, a hallmark of staff trained to cater to demanding clientele. "Good morning, Mom," Clara said, her voice calm and welcoming. "How can I assist you today?" Maya returned the smile, her tone measured. "Good morning. I'm here for the Carter Energy Solutions flight to Zurich." Clara's fingers danced over the keyboard, her smile never faltering. "Of course, Miss Carter. Everything is in order. Your jet is being prepared, and the captain will meet you shortly." "Thank you," Maya said with a slight nod. She stepped aside, letting her gaze wander over the terminal. The quiet hum of activity was almost soothing. Yet beneath the surface of luxury, she could feel the unspoken tension, a sense of being observed too closely. As Maya waited, her thoughts turned to the importance of this trip. The Zurich meeting was the culmination of months of negotiation, a chance to solidify a partnership that would expand Carter Energy Solutions into Europe. It wasn't just about business, it was about showing that a black woman from Chicago's South Side could redefine global industries. She didn't have to wait long. From across the terminal, a man in a crisp pilot's uniform strode toward her. His tall frame and broad shoulders gave him an air of authority, but there was something guarded in his expression. Captain Jack Thompson moved with the confidence of someone accustomed to being in control, but his eyes, narrowed and assessing, betrayed an edge of skepticism. Maya turned to meet him as he approached, her posture straight and composed. She extended a hand with a polite smile. "Captain Thompson, I presume?" Jack glanced at her hand briefly before taking it. His grip was firm, bordering on dismissive. "Miss Carter, I take it." His tone carried a veneer of politeness, but it was undermined by the way he scanned her from head to toe, as if trying to reconcile her presence with his assumptions. "That's correct," Maya replied evenly. Her smile didn't waver. "I trust everything is ready for departure." Jack hesitated, glancing at Clara as if seeking confirmation before returning his gaze to Maya. "Yes, though I must say, we don't often see private clients, such as yourself." The words hung in the air, each syllable laced with implication. Clara, standing a few feet away, froze for a moment, her professional smile faltering. Maya's eyebrows lifted slightly, her calm demeanor unshaken. "Clients such as myself," she repeated, her tone cool but laced with an edge. Jack shrugged, a faint smirk tugging at the corner of his mouth. "You know, it's just uncommon. Most of our private jet owners come from a certain background." Maya held his gaze, her expression unreadable. She'd seen this look before, heard these words in different forms. It was the subtle kind of bias, the kind that didn't shout but whispered, leaving room for plausible deniability. Different how exactly? She asked, her voice calm but piercing. Jack shifted on his feet, the faintest hint of discomfort flickering across his face. Well, no offense, but most of our clients tend to be older. Or from, let's say, more established families. It's just unusual to see someone. He hesitated, but the unfinished sentence said everything. Maya's sharp eyes didn't miss a beat. I see, she said smoothly. And you base that observation on what, precisely? Jack opened his mouth to respond but thought better of it. Instead, he forced a tight-lipped smile. No issue, Ms. Carter. I'll go ensure the pre-flight checks are completed. As he turned to leave, Maya's voice stopped him. Captain Thompson. He paused, glancing back over his shoulder. Be sure you're fully prepared, she said, her tone measured but firm. I have no tolerance for unprofessionalism. Her words hung in the air like a gauntlet thrown. Jack stiffened, his jaw tightening before he nodded curtly and walked away. Maya exhaled softly, her grip tightening on her carry-on. She was no stranger to moments like these, but they never ceased to sting. Yet, she refused to let ignorance and prejudice derail her plans. Not today, not ever. She glanced at her watch. The jet would be ready soon, and when it was, she would step aboard not just as a passenger, but as a woman who had earned every inch of the sky. Maya took a seat in the lounge near a large window overlooking the tarmac. The view was a picture of modern luxury. Her private jet gleamed in the sunlight, its sleek design a testament to her years of hard work. The calm setting, however, did little to settle the churn of emotions brewing inside her. She had long ago developed a thick skin for moments like this, but the morning's interaction with Captain Thompson had left a bitter taste. She pulled her tablet from her carry-on and began reviewing her presentation for the Zurich meeting. It was her usual strategy, focus on the bigger picture, on the opportunities ahead, rather than the obstacles placed in her path. Yet her mind kept drifting back to Jack's dismissive tone and the implications behind his words. The prejudice wasn't overt, it rarely was in these spaces, but it was there, woven into every pause and glance. Clara, the young staff member who had checked Maya in, approached quietly, holding a tray with a steaming cup of coffee and a small dish of sugar cubes. Her polite smile hadn't faded, but there was a noticeable tension in her posture, as though she had witnessed more than she let on. Ms. Carter, Clara said softly as she set the tray on the table beside Maya. Your coffee. Thank you, Clara, Maya replied, her tone warm. She noticed the way Clara's hands lingered on the tray for a moment before she straightened, as if hesitant to leave. Is there anything else I can get for you? Clara asked, her voice quieter now, almost tentative. Maya studied her for a beat, noting the unease in her expression. No, this is perfect. Thank you. Clara nodded, but just as she turned to leave, Maya called out gently, Clara? The young woman paused, turning back with a questioning look. You don't need to answer this, Maya began, her voice even but perceptive. But has Captain Thompson ever acted this way with other clients? Clara hesitated, her eyes darting briefly toward the gate where Jack had disappeared. I'm not sure what you mean, ma'am. Maya smiled faintly, understanding the weight behind the woman's reluctance. It's all right. I appreciate your professionalism. Clara exhaled softly, her shoulders relaxing a fraction. Thank you, ma'am, she said before retreating toward the counter. Maya returned to her tablet, but moments later, movement near the gate caught her eye. Jack had returned, his steps brisk and his expression taut. He was speaking to a younger crew member, Alex, whose nervous body language mirrored Clara's earlier hesitation. Maya couldn't hear their words, but their gestures told a story. Jack's sharp movements and Alex's uncomfortable nodding suggested the conversation was anything but routine. Her instincts sharpened. Something about Jack's demeanor felt deliberate, like a storm gathering on the horizon. She watched as he gestured toward the jet, his voice rising slightly, though still too low for her to make out. Alex glanced over his shoulder toward the lounge, his gaze flicking briefly to Maya before returning to Jack. Maya's jaw tightened. She had seen this pattern before when prejudice was cloaked in bureaucracy, when protocol became a weapon to undermine authority or question someone's presence. She set her tablet aside and leaned back in her seat, her gaze steady as she watched Jack retreat toward the tarmac. Her phone buzzed on the table, breaking her concentration. The name Ethan Bennett appeared on the screen. Maya's lips curved into a faint smile as she answered. Ethan, she greeted him, her tone calm but with a trace of relief. I assume this isn't just a friendly check-in. Ethan's voice was warm and steady, a familiar anchor in moments like these. You'd be right. Clara called me. She was worried something was off with the pilot. What's going on? Maya appreciated Clara's quiet support. Let's just say Captain Thompson has some preconceived notions about who should own a private jet, she replied evenly. He's questioning my authority, and he's being less than subtle about it. Ethan sighed audibly on the other end of the line. I should have guessed it'd be him. Jack's had complaints before, but nothing this blatant. Do you want me to handle it? No, Maya said firmly. I'll handle it. But if this escalates, I might need you to step in. You know I've got your back, Ethan replied without hesitation. Keep me posted. Thanks, Ethan, Maya said before ending the call. She placed her phone down and exhaled softly, centering herself. This wasn't the first time she'd faced such behavior, but it didn't make it any less frustrating. She glanced at her watch. The flight was scheduled to depart soon, and she had no intention of letting Jack delay her any further. Minutes later, Jack reappeared, his expression tight and his body language defensive. He stopped a few feet from her seat, his posture stiff as he addressed her. Miss Carter, he said. His tone clipped. I've spoken to the crew, and while your documentation seems to be in order, there are still concerns. Maya's eyes narrowed slightly, though her expression remained composed. Concerns? She echoed, her tone sharp but controlled. What concerns, Captain? Jack hesitated, glancing briefly at Alex, who stood nearby with a look of unease. It's just unusual, Jack began, his words deliberate, for an owner to be present. Most of our clients prefer to leave these arrangements to their assistants or managers. Maya's lips curved into a faint, incredulous smile. So, because I choose to manage my own affairs, you've decided that warrants suspicion. Jack shifted on his feet, his confidence faltering under her unyielding gaze. I didn't say that, he muttered. I'm just doing my job. No, Captain, Maya said, standing and closing the distance between them. Her voice was calm but carried an edge of authority that demanded attention. Your job is to fly this plane, not to question the validity of my ownership or presence. If you have a legitimate concern, address it professionally. If not, I suggest you focus on preparing for takeoff. Jack opened his mouth to respond, but the weight of her words and the way Alex shifted uncomfortably beside him stopped him. His jaw tightened, and he nodded stiffly. Understood, ma'am. Maya held his gaze for a moment longer before stepping back. Good. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a flight to catch. As Jack retreated toward the gate, Alex hesitated, his gaze darting between Maya and the departing pilot. Finally, he approached her, his expression a mix of apology and admiration. Ms. Carter, he began, his voice low, I just wanted to say, I'm sorry for how this is playing out. It's not right. Maya regarded him thoughtfully. Thank you, Alex, she said. But don't apologize for someone else's actions. Just promise me one thing. Of course, Alex said, his tone eager. Remember this moment, Maya said. The next time you see someone being underestimated, don't stay silent. Alex nodded, his face determined. I won't. As he walked away, Maya returned to her seat, her resolve solidified. The flight was only the beginning. Jack's behavior wouldn't go unanswered, not today, not ever. Maya boarded the jet with purpose, her heels clicking against the metal stairs with deliberate precision. The luxury interior of the aircraft unfolded before her as she stepped inside. Cream leather seats, polished wood accents, and the faint aroma of lavender-infused air freshener. It was a testament to her hard work, a physical embodiment of her journey from humble beginnings to a seat at the global table. As Maya settled into her seat, she noticed Marcus, the young flight attendant, standing nearby with a clipboard. His demeanor was professional but tinged with the same unease she had seen in Clara and Alex. He greeted her with a polite nod, his tone neutral but careful. Welcome aboard, Miss Carter. May I offer you anything to drink before we take off? Water? Champagne? He asked, his hands clasped tightly in front of him. Water will be fine, thank you, Maya replied, offering him a warm but measured smile. She could see the hesitation in his posture, the way he avoided holding her gaze for too long. It was clear he was aware of the tension brewing between her and Captain Thompson. Marcus returned moments later with a chilled glass of water, placing it on the tray beside her. "If there's anything else you need, don't hesitate to let me know," he said before retreating toward the galley. Maya watched him go, her mind already shifting to the next steps. This flight wasn't just about reaching Zurich, it was about sending a message. Meanwhile, in the cockpit, Jack sat rigid in his seat, staring at the control panel as if willing it to offer some form of clarity. His co-pilot, David, glanced at him sideways, sensing the tension. "You all right, Jack?" David asked cautiously. Jack didn't respond immediately. His grip tightened on the edge of the console. "I'm fine," he muttered finally, though his tone betrayed him. David wasn't convinced. "You sure? Because it seems like whatever's going on with Ms. Carter has gotten under your skin." Jack shot him a sharp look. "What's that supposed to mean?" David shrugged, keeping his tone even. "Just saying it's not like you to let a client rattle you. She's got all the paperwork. She's the owner. Why not let it go?" Jack scoffed, his jaw tightening. "It's not that simple, David. People fake things all the time. You really think someone like her—" "Stop," David interrupted, his voice firm for the first time. "Do you hear yourself? Someone like her? Jack, this isn't about protocol, and you know it. You're letting your bias show." Jack's expression darkened, but he didn't respond. The truth in David's words stung more than he cared to admit. As the jet began taxiing toward the runway, Marcus approached Maya's seat again, his expression hesitant. "Ms. Carter, Captain Thompson has requested to speak with you before we take off. He said it's about ensuring everything is in order." Maya's lips pressed into a thin line. She had hoped Jack would have the sense to let the matter rest, but it seemed he was determined to push further. "Very well," she said, standing and smoothing her blazer. "Let's get this over with." Marcus led her to the cockpit, his steps slow and deliberate, as though he were trying to shield her from what lay ahead. When they arrived, Jack was standing just outside the cockpit door, arms crossed and expression taut. "Miss Carter," he began, his tone clipped. "Before we take off, I want to confirm a few things about your itinerary and ownership documentation." Maya raised an eyebrow, her calm demeanor unshaken. "My itinerary and documentation were already verified by your ground staff and approved by your company. What exactly do you need to confirm, Captain?" Jack hesitated, his gaze faltering for a moment before he pressed on. "It's not every day we see a client like you personally present. I just want to ensure everything is as it should be." Maya's eyes narrowed slightly, though her voice remained composed. "A client like me," she repeated. "Do you mean a black woman owning a private jet? Let's not dance around the point, Captain. If you're going to question my presence, at least have the courage to be direct." Jack stiffened, his confidence visibly cracking under the weight of her words. David, still seated in the cockpit, glanced over his shoulder, his expression a mix of discomfort and silent agreement with Maya. "I didn't mean it like that," Jack said quickly, though his tone lacked conviction. "It's just unusual." Maya stepped closer, her voice dropping to a level that demanded attention. "Captain Thompson, let me make one thing clear. I am the sole owner of this aircraft. I've worked tirelessly to earn every inch of it. Your doubts and assumptions do not change that fact. If you have any legitimate concerns, state them now. Otherwise, I expect you to do your job and fly this plane." Her words landed like a hammer, and for the first time, Jack seemed at a loss for how to respond. The silence stretched between them, heavy and unyielding. Finally, David spoke up, his voice steady but firm. "Jack, she's right. This has gone far enough. Let's get in the air." Jack's jaw tightened, but after a moment he gave a stiff nod. "Fine," he muttered before retreating into the cockpit. Maya returned to her seat, her expression calm but her mind still churning with frustration. As the jet lifted off, she stared out the window at the clouds below, letting the hum of the engine steady her thoughts. She had won this round, but the fight wasn't over, not yet. Marcus approached her once the jet reached cruising altitude, his demeanor more relaxed now. "Ms. Carter, is there anything I can get for you?" he asked. Maya looked up at him, her expression softening slightly. "No, thank you, Marcus. but I do appreciate your professionalism today." He nodded, a faint smile breaking through his earlier unease. "It's the least I can do." As he walked away, Maya allowed herself a small sigh of relief. For now, the situation was under control, but she knew there was still more to address once they landed. In the cockpit, Jack sat rigid in his seat, his hands gripping the controls tightly. The confrontation with Maya replayed in his mind, each word striking like a blow to his ego. He knew he had overstepped, but admitting it, truly acknowledging his behavior, felt like a mountain he wasn't ready to climb. A chime on the control panel broke his thoughts. It was a message from Ethan Bennett, the company's director of operations. "Captain Thompson, upon arrival in Zurich, report immediately to the local office for a performance review. Details regarding client interactions will be discussed. Failure to comply will result in immediate suspension." Jack's face paled as he read the message, the weight of his actions finally sinking in. He glanced at David, who said nothing but shook his head slightly, his disapproval clear. For Maya, the sky stretched out endlessly, a vast expanse of opportunity and possibility. But for Jack, the turbulence was just beginning. The jet descended into Zurich, the snow-capped peaks of the Alps forming a majestic backdrop against the clear blue sky. Inside the cabin, the atmosphere had shifted from tense to calm, though an undercurrent of unease still lingered. Maya remained in her seat, her gaze fixed out the window, the sprawling Swiss landscape a stark reminder of why she was here: to achieve, to expand, to lead. Marcus, the young flight attendant, approached once more as the wheels touched the tarmac with a soft bump. His expression was composed but carried a hint of nervousness, as though he was still processing the morning's events. "Ms. Carter," he said quietly, his voice careful, "welcome to Zurich. It's been a pleasure serving you." Maya turned to him, her expression warm but firm. "Thank you, Marcus. You've handled yourself with professionalism, even under difficult circumstances. I want you to know it hasn't gone unnoticed." Marcus's posture relaxed slightly, a faint smile breaking through his reserved demeanor. "That means a lot, Maya. I hope the rest of your trip goes smoothly." "I'll make sure of it," Maya replied, her tone carrying an edge of determination. As the jet taxied to its designated parking spot, Maya noticed Jack emerging from the cockpit. His shoulders were stiff, his jaw set, and his eyes avoided meeting hers. He stood by the exit, his posture rigid, clearly waiting to deliver a perfunctory farewell. Maya rose from her seat, her movements deliberate and measured. She approached Jack, her heels clicking softly against the cabin floor. When she stopped in front of him, there was a moment of silence, a charged pause where the air between them felt thick with unspoken words. "Captain Thompson," Maya began, her voice steady and controlled, "I trust you've had time to reflect on your actions today." Jack's lips tightened into a thin line. "Ms. Carter," he said curtly, his tone lacking the defiance he had shown earlier, "I've done my job to the best of my ability." Maya tilted her head slightly, her sharp gaze unyielding. "Your job is to fly this plane, yes, but it is also your job to treat every client with respect and professionalism. Today you failed in that responsibility. And while I'm sure this has been a learning experience for you, let me be clear, there will be accountability for your behavior." Jack's face flushed, but he remained silent, his pride warring with the reality of his situation. "Good day, Captain," Maya said finally, her tone dismissive. Without waiting for a response, she descended the stairs onto the tarmac, where a sleek black car waited to take her to her next destination. Inside the Zurich office of the aviation company, Jack sat across from Ethan Bennett, the director of operations. The atmosphere in the room was heavy, the weight of the morning's events hanging over them. Ethan, a sharp-eyed man in his 40s, was known for his no-nonsense approach to leadership, and today was no exception. "Captain Thompson," Ethan began, his tone firm, "I've reviewed the report from Ms. Carter and spoken with other members of the crew. It's clear your behavior this morning was unprofessional and inappropriate." Jack shifted uncomfortably in his seat. "I didn't mean any harm. I was just trying to ensure everything was in order." "Stop," Ethan interrupted, holding up a hand. "This isn't about protocol. It's about prejudice. You questioned a client's authority and ownership based solely on your assumptions. That is not acceptable, not in this company, not in this industry." Jack opened his mouth to protest but quickly closed it. The reality of the situation was sinking in, and there was little he could say to defend his actions. Ethan leaned forward, his expression unyielding. Effective immediately, you are suspended pending a full review. Further disciplinary action, up to and including termination, will be determined based on the outcome of this investigation. Jack's shoulders slumped, the fight draining from him. Understood, he muttered, his voice barely audible. Meanwhile, Maya arrived at the Zurich Conference Center, her car pulling up to the grand entrance where her business partner, Nina Patel, waited with a welcoming smile. Nina was a dynamic leader in her own right, having co-founded one of Europe's largest renewable energy firms. Maya. Nina greeted her warmly, embracing her briefly. It's so good to see you. It's good to be here, Maya replied, her voice tinged with relief. It's been a long morning. Nina's smile faltered slightly. I heard. Ethan called me to explain. Are you all right? I'm fine, Maya said, her tone resolute. But it's a reminder of why we do what we do. We're not just building companies, we're breaking barriers. Nina nodded, admiration clear in her expression. And you're doing it with more grace than most could muster. The meeting that followed was a triumph. Maya's presentation was compelling, her vision for expanding renewable energy into new markets both ambitious and practical. By the end of the day, the partnership was solidified, paving the way for significant growth for both companies. As she left the conference center, Maya allowed herself a moment to reflect. The day had been challenging, but it had also been a testament to her strength and resilience. She wasn't just building a company, she was redefining expectations and creating space for others to follow. Weeks later, a memo circulated within the aviation company, announcing changes in policy and training. Captain Jack Thompson's suspension had been upgraded to termination, and a new program focused on diversity and sensitivity training was being implemented across all levels of the organization. Maya received an email from Ethan, thanking her for her professionalism and for holding the company accountable. His message ended with a promise: we are committed to doing better. Back in her Chicago office, Maya sat at her desk, a view of the city skyline stretching out before her. Her phone buzzed with a message from Nina. Nina, dinner in Zurich soon. First round's on me. Maya smiled, typing a quick reply. Maya, only if you let me pick the place. And next time, let's fly with a pilot who respects their passengers. She set her phone down and leaned back in her chair, her gaze steady and determined. The battle for respect and equality wasn't over, but Maya knew she was ready for whatever came next. The success in Zurich had cemented Maya Carter's position not only as a leader in renewable energy, but as a symbol of resilience and progress. Back in her Chicago office, surrounded by the familiar hum of her team, she reflected on the events of the past few weeks. The incident with Captain Thompson had been just one more reminder of the barriers that existed for people like her. But it also reminded her of the power of standing firm and demanding accountability. One morning, as Maya sat in her office reviewing plans for her company's upcoming expansion, her assistant, Jillian, entered with a sleek envelope embossed with the logo of Elite Aviation. This just arrived for you, Ms. Carter, Jillian said, placing it on her desk. Maya thanked her, setting aside her tablet to open the envelope. Inside was a formal letter from Ethan Bennett, the director of operations she had spoken with after the incident. The tone of the letter was clear, professional, and sincere. Dear Ms. Carter, I want to personally thank you for bringing to our attention the unprofessional conduct you experienced during your recent flight. Your feedback has been instrumental in initiating meaningful change within our organization. As of today, Captain Jack Thompson is no longer employed with Elite Aviation. Additionally, we have implemented mandatory diversity and sensitivity training for all employees, from ground staff to senior leadership. This initiative is not just a response to your experience, but a commitment to ensuring that every client, regardless of their background, is treated with respect and dignity. Your patience and professionalism throughout this process have been a powerful example. Thank you for holding us accountable and for reminding us of the standards we must uphold. Sincerely, Ethan Bennett, Director of Operations, Elite Aviation. Maya read the letter twice, her expression calm but thoughtful. It wasn't about revenge or satisfaction, it was about setting a precedent. She folded the letter neatly and set it aside, her resolve deepening. If her experience could spark change, then the frustration and discomfort had been worth it. 2 weeks later, Maya received another email, this time from Clara, the young staff member at the terminal who had quietly supported her during the ordeal. Clara's message was heartfelt and full of gratitude. Subject: Thank you. Dear Ms. Cotter, I hope this email finds you well. I wanted to reach out and thank you for the way you handled the situation with Captain Thompson. Your words stayed with me, especially when you told me not to let anyone else's prejudice define me. I wanted to let you know that I've been offered a position in the corporate training division at Elite Aviation. They said my professionalism during your visit was a key factor in their decision. I'll be helping implement the new diversity training program, and I owe this opportunity to you. Thank you for inspiring me to stand taller and be better. Warm regards, Clara Jones. Maya smiled as she read the email. Clara's courage had played a pivotal role in diffusing the tension that day, and seeing her rewarded for her integrity was a small but meaningful victory. She quickly typed a reply. Subject: Congratulations. Dear Clara, thank you for your kind words and congratulations on your new role. Your professionalism and courage were evident from the moment we met, and I'm thrilled to see your efforts recognized. This is just the beginning for you. Remember, the work you'll be doing now has the power to shape attitudes and create lasting change. Keep leading by example. Best regards, Maya Carter. Later that month, Maya received a call from Marcus, the flight attendant who had served her during the flight. He explained that he had recently been promoted to a lead position within Elite Aviation's in-flight services team. I just wanted to say thank you, Ms. Carter, Marcus said over the phone. Your poise and leadership inspired me to step up and take on more responsibility. I never thought I'd have the courage to stand up for what's right, but watching you handle that situation changed my perspective. Maya's voice was warm as she replied, Marcus, you've always had that courage. You just needed the right moment to let it shine. Keep moving forward and don't hesitate to make your voice heard. The changes at Elite Aviation quickly gained attention within the industry. News outlets picked up on the story, framing it as a case study in accountability and corporate responsibility. Maya's name was often mentioned, though she avoided the spotlight, focusing instead on her company's growth and the new opportunities it was creating. The ripple effects extended beyond the aviation industry. Other companies began reevaluating their training programs and policies, spurred by the story of Maya's confrontation. She became an unintentional but powerful advocate for equity and professionalism, a role she embraced with quiet determination. Months later, Maya found herself back in Zurich for a follow-up meeting with her European partners. After a successful day of negotiations, she met with Nina Patel for dinner at a small, elegant restaurant overlooking the city. The evening was filled with laughter and camaraderie, a stark contrast to the tension of her last visit. As they toasted to their success, Nina leaned forward, her eyes sparkling. You know, Maya, you've done more than expand your company. You've changed the way people think. Maya smiled, her gaze steady. It's not about me, Nina. It's about the work, the barriers we break, and the doors we open for others. That's what matters. As the evening drew to a close, Maya stepped out onto the balcony of her hotel suite, the lights of Zurich twinkling below her. The city was quiet, a world away from the turbulence of that fateful flight. She thought about the people she had met along the way: Clara, Marcus, Ethan, and even Jack. Each one had played a part in the larger story, a narrative of change and accountability. The work wasn't finished, but it was moving in the right direction. Maya lifted her glass to the night sky, a silent toast to progress, to resilience, and to the limitless possibilities that awaited those bold enough to reach for them. The stars above seemed to shine a little brighter, and Maya smiled. The sky, after all, was only the beginning. Join us to share meaningful stories by hitting the like and subscribe buttons. Don't forget to turn on the notification bell to start your day with profound lessons and heartfelt empathy.